My brothers and sisters, as many of y'all know, Father Alex, the former administrator here at St. Anne, and I are best friends. We're best friends because we started seminary together and we had to go through that long, grueling process together. I always say that when Father Alex started seminary, he was a lot more argumentative, meaning he liked to argue with people, and I was a lot more angry, meaning I would blow up at anything. I've gotten a little bit better for that, but those that work with me know how easy it is for me to blow up like that. Father Alex was so argumentative whenever he was in seminary that literally the first year he was in seminary, there were certain seminarians that would try to avoid sitting with him at the dinner table because they did not want to argue with him. They were trying to avoid arguing with him. And so one day I kind of got word of this, and so I kind of asked him, I said, man, why do you like to argue so much? And why can't you see that people are getting uncomfortable sometimes whenever you're arguing with them? And he told me, he said, I'm sorry, man, it's something that's kind of ingrained in me. You see, I was on a debate team at Thibodeau High, and my coach used to say all the time, he said, Alex, you can argue the wrong position, but if you constantly argue it, if you continue to argue it, the person that's arguing the right position will soon get tired. They will get weary of arguing, and they'll concede the argument, not because you're right, but because you just kept arguing. My brothers and sisters, in our gospel today, we have that similar thing, right? The widow who will not stop. She will not stop badgering or bothering the unjust judge to get what she wants, to get justice, right? The thing is, in our own society, if we try to translate that from us to God, it's not one-to-one, right? God is not an unjust judge. He is a just judge. He is the fullness of justice, we can say. And our motives are not always pure, right? Our judgments, our justice is not always the most perfect judgment. If one thing we can say, you could almost flip it, right? We're the unjust widow, and God is the all-just judge. And yet we continue to ask God for things, right? We continue to pray. We continue to enter into prayer. The moral of the story, obviously, is that we continue to ask, right? We continue to pray more and more and more. And there's two real things for us here. The first is to be authentic about our prayer. There was a seminarian that used to pray the rosary during the LSU games for LSU to win the game. I'm sorry, I think that is a very bad prayer. Not just because I don't like LSU. Trust me, I love LSU. I was wearing an LSU hat all day long yesterday. But because it's not really meaningful, right? I'd rather pray for somebody that's in the hospital. I'd rather pray for somebody who just passed away. I'd rather pray for things that are authentic, not something that is superficial. Just to pray that I get a red Twizzler instead of a blue Twizzler or something like that. That is something so superficial. Our prayer should be authentic. She was praying for justice, right? She was praying for something that was really, really good. And it was super authentic. But it's also to constantly pray, to continue to pray even if the answer is no over and over and over again. And I like to say, what is the grace that comes about from that? Well, I think it's the difference between a 16-year-old who is given a car and a 16-year-old who has to work to receive a car, to buy a car, right? Something that is given is not as valued as something that is earned. And we all know that in our lives as well, right? So if you continue to work at prayer, that's the first reading, right? The first reading, Moses has to continue to lift his arms up. It's a beautiful grace that we enter into prayer, and for some little small facet, we are working for what is being given, right? We have to do some kind of action to receive something. That means it's not just God. In some small way, we are doing a little bit of piece of that. We are praying for that. We take ownership of that prayer. It is not just a prayer that is something like, oh, here it is. No, we have to enter into it. A lot of people say all the time, well, I can pray when I'm in the boat fishing on Sunday instead of coming here to Mass. Let's be honest about it. You're probably praying for a big catch instead of actually praising God. The truth is, my brothers and sisters, is we come here to pray together. And the truth is, this is God's creation. This is not our creation. This is the way God has asked us to pray. This is not how we ask ourselves to pray, right? God is the God. We are the creatures. And we have to constantly remind ourselves of that because that spiritual pride seeps in because we try to take control of it in that way. God is asking us to pray authentically, and he's asking us to pray over and over again. If our God is asking us to do that, then maybe we should do it. And so, my brothers and sisters, as we come to the table, Lord, let us remember what God is asking of us. He's asking us to pray with authenticity, and he's asking us to enter into prayer as if it was ours, as if it was to render a just decision, as if it was everything, to pray without ceasing. As we continue with the Mass explanation today, we actually start to get into the actual things that we do at Mass. So when we begin Mass, obviously we begin with announcements and with an explanation of Mass. The first thing we actually do as we begin Mass is we begin with an entrance song or an entrance hymn or a song. And I hope you know that this isn't something that is new. We've actually done this since the 6th century. The Christian people would gather together and they would pray either Psalm 113 or Psalm 118. The Jewish people call that the Great Hallel, meaning praising God as we begin Mass. And it has a couple of different functions on why we do that. Beautiful functions, though. The first is that singing has a sense of, we call solemnizing, meaning making something more solemn, right? If you ever went to a musical, the things that are sung are the most important things. The things that are said are just things that are just filler, right? So when we sing something, we mean that it's very important to us. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is that it clothes in beauty, right? When we have good music, we think it's a beautiful thing, right? We can objectively say, well, this person can sing well, this person can sing, but not as well as the other person. There is beauty in music. And then obviously the third thing is that it unifies us. We don't just come here to pray singly, we come here to unify. The choir that sings up there, their job isn't just to sound beautiful, that's one of their jobs. Their main job is to lead us in worship, right? It's to lead us together. That's why we spend about $500 every year with hymnal books that are in the pews, right? It's something that we should do together. It's not just something we should listen to. Vatican II said that we want full active participation in Mass, and that's what we try to do.